Keith Alverson's family has been farming the same land near Chester, South Dakota since the late 1800s. It's been a tough year for South Dakota operators. International trade disputes have closed markets. Flooded fields in the eastern part of the state impacted both spring planting and fall harvest. But Alverson says being a sixth-generation farmer helps keep things in perspective.
You know, the staying power aspect of it gives you a little confidence, even if when things are challenging, you know, that you've had previous generations that have been through the trials and tribulations and had a tougher time than, you know, maybe we're experiencing even.
In South Dakota, 83% of 29,968 farms are owned by families or individuals. 8% are in partnerships and 6% are in family-held corporations. 1% are in non-family held corporations. That means the future of farming is determined not only by outside forces, but by South Dakota families making decisions every season, every day. Scott Stahl says the next generation of farmers needs to understand data as well as agronomy.
So what's interesting, and there's been studies done on this, farmers are very early adapters of technology. And I would tell you that because of the renewable fuel standard, there's kind of been a renaissance in agriculture. Younger producers that have come back and been more receptive to this technology, and the ability that we have with some of our precision tools to dial down our not looking at a 100-acre field as a 100-acre field and really breaking that field down into smaller areas and being able to maximize our efficiency and productivity by variable rating our fertilizer, so that we're not, you know, going out there with a blanket application and every square inch on that field's getting the same amount. We're only putting the fertilizer where it needs to be, and that's exciting because it's better for the environment and it's also more cost effective for the producer. So I can definitely see more adaptation of that going forward. That's been something that's been really big over the last 10 years, and I just see that progressing over the next 10 as well.
As operators adopt precision tools such as advanced sensors, robotics, and drone technology, they also need to adapt to climate change. Laura Edwards is South Dakota State climatologist.
Here in South Dakota, we have seen warming temperatures in general. When we look at an annual basis, you know, it's been a couple degrees over the last century. When you compare the early 1900s to the early 2000s, we have seen warming overall. But most of that warming we see in the winter season. It's not even across all the seasons of the year. And we see the least warming in the summer season, which is kind of interesting because that's our growing season, and for agriculture that is important. And as we look forward into the future, you know, there's pretty strong consensus that we will continue to see warming temperatures in the coming decades.
And then there's the rain. In 2019, South Dakota farmers had more of it than they could handle.
You know, when we look at the National Climate Assessment, their data is showing that South Dakota is getting wetter faster than most other states in the country, which is really quite incredible. You know, 15 to 20% wetter now than, 60, 70 years ago even. And so, again, though, kind of like temperature, it's not evenly increasing across all the seasons. At least in the recent, several decades, we've seen it more in the spring and the fall season, which I'm sure a lot of our farmers and ranchers can attest to, with all the challenges with planting in the spring and harvesting in the fall, and a lot of the spring flooding as well that we've seen in the last 20, 25 years.
According to the 2017 Census of Agriculture, the number of farms in South Dakota has declined 6% since 2012. Farms are getting bigger, even as livestock inventory, corn production, and soybean production are all on the rise. Professor David O'Hara teaches environmental philosophy at Augustana University in Sioux Falls. He reminds us that in spite of the promises of precision agriculture and new technology, it's important to consider carefully where our food comes from and the full cost and consequences of bringing that food to our plates. He says it's important for the rest of us to take care of the people who take care of the land.
We need to care for the people who are caring for the land.
Yeah.
Those of us who aren't farming need to care for the farmers.
In what way?
Well, There are a whole bunch of ways. One of the ways that we need to think about is in terms of farm policy, farm bills. We make it expensive to farm. Every year, farmers take out loans that have the capacity to bankrupt them. That system right there is one that it's very difficult to operate under.
Ag technology is rapidly advancing, according to SDSU professor David Clay. He has been instrumental in advancing research and education about precision ag technology at South Dakota State University. He says the promise of the data is to help operators make better decisions than the generations who farmed before.
If we think about how we make decisions, the decisions that we make are based on the best information that we have. And I think everybody, whether they're a farmer or they're a businessman or they're selling movies and want you to go or buy popcorn, everybody has that same sort of process, trying to make the best decision they can based on the information that they have. What we've learned is that the information that we have may not necessarily be right. And so as the science goes forward, what we understand about our systems changes. And so we start making different decisions, and now the process then is if the information I've captured is different, then somebody else may look at the new information and make a slightly different decision. And so we have to fully integrate the research, teaching, and education components so that everybody stays current with the information that we've got. We're in an information overload in agriculture. It's just the amount of information that we're capturing and learning is just mind-boggling.
In spite of advanced technology and data analysis, farmer Scott Stahl says we often still can't predict the turn of events that might change a farmer's fortune.
Farming is kind of a unique field in some ways because at the end of the day, a lot of your success is out of your control. I mean, we're so reliant on Mother Nature in some ways, but I remember being riding in the combine in the buddy seat with my dad, and every once in a while we'd get to a certain part of the field. He'd have a big smile on his face. He said, "This is the best part of the field." And now that we have these GPS maps outlaying the yield across the entire field, I still think about, I can remember that spot in the field, and he knew it.
The future of farming is adaptation. The future of farming is technology. But the future of farming is, most of all, the people who eat what they produce and live where they work. As the number of family farms declines, it's important to connect operators with consumers in order to better understand the business, ag policy, and one another.